What is up, everyone, and welcome back to a brand new episode of the 3&D here on the Empty Debate Podcast Network. Make sure you hit subscribe below and follow our socials at the 3&D ETB and at ETB Network. Sorry for the hiatus over the past week. A lot of summer stuff going on, but we're back. Plenty more to talk about as the Summer League came to an end. On tonight's episode, we're going to be going over the Summer League as the Houston Rockets ended up winning it all. A couple of signings too that makes Chicago one of the more interesting backcourts in the NBA. Some of the top rookies performances in the Summer League, and then of course the Draymond Green comments, Damian Lillard trade buzz, and the Hornets being approved to sell. And of course we'll have Nick Morgeson coming on the show with us to talk about everything that's going on. We'll bring him on right now, as a matter of fact. And Nick, how are we doing?
Good, man. Glad to see you back. I'm ready to get into the headlines as well. So let's go.
Awesome. So first off, the Cavs beat the Rockets in the Summer League final. Final score was 99-78. So of course, the Summer League is not too big of a deal. They're kind of trying to make it more of a deal than it actually is, but the Summer League is more just for the young guys to showcase, try to make rosters, all that kind of stuff. As we were talking about before, and we'll probably get to it, the trophy ceremony was pretty interesting. But the Cavs ended up winning it all, and they ended up being the Rockets 99-78. The Cavs had a few interesting guys on their team. Sam Merrill averaged 20 points a game in 5 games that he played. Isaiah Mobley, who's Evan Mobley's brother, also had great performance, averaging 18 and 8 in 6 games. And Emoni Bates, who was their one and only draft pick this year, obviously a big name guy coming out of high school, but has been up and down, a little inconsistent play throughout his time in college. So he ended up falling to the mid-second round, and the Cavs got him. This was their only draft pick. He had averaged 17 points a game and 6 rebounds while shooting 40% from 3 in those 6 games. And then on the Rockets side, 2 games from Jabari Smith and Tari Eason, who are going to be 2 guys that are in their rotation pretty heavily throughout the year. 2 of their young guys. The Summer League MVP did come from the Rockets, even though they lost the game. Cam Whitmore, who we were saying should have been a top 5 pick, and it was insane that he fell all the way to 20 on draft night, and he's immediately showing that might have been a huge mistake for other teams. The Rockets could have ended up getting a gem at number 20. He ended up winning Summer League MVP, averaging 19 points and 5 rebounds and 2.5 steals. And there was a lot of good performances throughout the entire Summer League. The Cavs and the Rockets definitely having the better ones. Nick, what did you think about how the Summer League went and the final?
I mean, you and I were discussing this before we started. I mean, the Summer League is the Summer League. I mean, the guys come in, they play. I mean, I was expecting a little more. I mean, just to go off track a little bit, the Victor Wembanyama story was expecting a little more gameplay. Only got 2 games essentially out of it. But I look at the Cavs. The Cavs have a lot of interesting situations to figure out. What are they going to do? What are they going to do with why am I forgetting his name at the moment? Who's the big star in the Cavs right now? I'm forgetting his name. Top of my head.
Donovan Mitchell?
Donovan Mitchell, thank you. Yeah. What are they going to do with him? Because there's a lot of controversy going on in the world of Cleveland right now. And so is it great for the headlines of the Cavs? Yes. But they have a lot more to figure out on the NBA level when it comes to prospecting, and are they going to be a competitive team?
Yeah, they have a very interesting situation, and it comes down to a lot of different things, how these rookies are going to play out. They got a lot of young talent, but also Mitchell was seen working out with Emmanuel quickly. He's very close with all those Knicks guys. We know how much of a New Yorker he is, how much he's a family man. He's a diehard Mets fan, all that kind of stuff. And the Knicks almost came away with trading for him last offseason, but the Cavaliers ended up getting him. So he's got like 2 years left on his contract. It'd be interesting to see if he's really all in on the Cavaliers or if he's looking for an out in a couple of years. You got Darius Garland, who's been good. Evan Mobley looking like a good young player. Jared Allen is a good rim protector. There's rumors that they were going to shop him this offseason. They're on the cusp of being one of the better teams in the East. The East is pretty wide open, even though there's a lot of teams there at the top of it, and it's going to be interesting to see step forward they can get from their bench guys. Demonts and Sam Merrill both having great summer leagues. I think things can really grow from there. And Sam Merrill, great player in college, great 3-point shooter. He's had a cup of coffee in the NBA for a few different teams. So can he stick around? Evan Mobley's brother, Isaiah Mobley, and then Imani Bates, who has all the potential in the world to be one of the best scorers in the NBA. But the question is, will he put it all together? And will he put it all together at the highest level where he wasn't really able to do that in the college level?
Yeah. I mean, the way I look at this situation is just that the Cavs, like I said, have a lot to figure out. They have a lot to figure out. They have a lot to do prospect-wise. And are they a competitive team now to win in the NBA? No, they're not a competitive team right now to win in the NBA. But do they have a lot of great young guys? I think they signed someone to a Supermax in the offseason. I can't remember who that was, but I'm assuming it was one of their top young prospects that's been in the NBA for a year or two. But they need a lot of help. I mean, they're not in the LeBron James era of competition anymore when it comes to competing in the NBA. So they got to get it together, figure this out. Now, the one thing I will say to you, and I said it to you before we started, I feel like the whole ring ceremony for the Summer League is kind of insane and ridiculous. I mean, come on. Like, is this Adam Silver's attempt to say we want to be an all year round NBA product? Go ahead. We're going to win. We're going to win a Summer League title. Yay.
It's unbelievable. And I completely agree with that too. I feel like his hands are on a lot of different things. And, especially with the in-season tournament that we're about to have this upcoming season too. Like, there's a lot of stuff that he's trying to do to make like the playoffs not the only notable thing in the NBA for this upcoming season. And making summer league trophies and all that kind of stuff. I mean, the summer league is really organized scrimmages for the young guys to kind of showcase their talent, to see what kind of guys that they have in their training camp too, and for guys to make a roster too. You see like guys who get passed around a lot being able to make opening night rosters because they end up having a good summer league. And so it is pretty funny that we have a ring ceremony, we have all that kind of stuff for a summer league, which is really just scrimmages. That is honestly pretty hilarious.
I mean, the Rockets also, because the Rockets are another team where you're just like, okay, they made their big move. They got their big free agent from the guy from Toronto.
Yeah, Fred VanVleet.
Fred VanVleet, who, by the way, got way overpaid by the Rockets. I think he got 36 million a year to go to Houston. Houston was so desperate to make a move in the offseason that they just said, all right, we're just going to throw all our money, all our asset at Fred VanVleet, who is a good player. He's probably a B+, B- player at best. I wouldn't say he's an A-level player. He's not a Dame Lillard. He's not a Joel Embiid. He's not a Giannis. He's not in that level of players, but
exactly.
The Rockets were so desperate. Like, the desperation is like screaming out of the organization. Go get a guy. We need someone.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And they gave Dylan Brooks $20 million a year too, which was another big overpay. But they really want to make this push and to try to develop into a somewhat decent team. And we'll see if those end up working out for them. Not too sure it's going to, but
Dylan Brooks was such a reach too. I mean, don't get me wrong. He kind of and try to bear with me with this comparison, but I could see a little bit of Draymond in Dylan Brooks.
Absolutely. He's got the tenacity. He's got similarities for sure.
But he can't score. Draymond, even though people shit on him for not scoring, but like he could give you a basket. He could put up 15, 20 points on a given night. I don't know if Dylan Brooks can put up 15 or 20 points in a given night. Like Dylan Brooks is closer to Ben Wallace than he is to Draymond Green.
Exactly. No, it's so true. And he doesn't really have too much of an offensive game, and they give him a lot of money. And they're trying to bring some guys who have played for winning teams into the organization, but some of them are pretty big reaches. I think they had.
And by the way, I think Memphis upgraded by getting rid of Dylan Brooks and bringing in DeMarcus Smart.
Yep. Yeah. Oh, they absolutely did. Marcus Smart's an all-around unbelievably better player than Dylan Brooks is in every aspect, on offense, on defense, everything. So I completely agree with that. But jumping over to another Eastern Conference team, news came out that Ayo Dosunmu was re-signed to a 3-year, $21 million contract by the Chicago Bulls. A little bit of a head scratcher with the amount of guards that this team already has on their roster. Kobe White, people were wondering if he was going to be re-signed. They ended up bringing him back for 3 years, $40 million. They brought Dosunmu back now, 3 years, $21 million. They also signed Javon Carter for 3 years, $20 million. And on top of that, they already have DeMar DeRozan, who's more of a 3 right now. Hasn't been playing as much guard, but you got Zach LaVine. They also have Alex Caruso, who's still under contract. Lonzo Ball, even though Lonzo's probably not going to play very much, but they have all those guys and a plethora of guards that it's honestly kind of crazy. It's kind of insane the amount of guards that they're going after and the amount of point guards too. I mean, I guess they're trying to compensate for, Lonzo Ball most likely being out. And honestly, his career could be over, sadly, is the problem.
Yeah, his career is basically over. They also I think they got $10 million in an injury exception, I think, from the NBA. So that only can cover them so much because $10 million is like nothing in the NBA anymore. So the guard situation, the way I look at the NBA, you need 2 good guards if you're going to compete to win a title. Yeah. So if you don't have 2 good guards, first of all, the Bulls are all over the place with the guard situation. They need to pick 2 guards and stick with them. And they paid 2 guys 3 years, $20 million. If that's what you're going to do, those are your 2 guards. So
exactly.
The Lonzo situation, I think he's done. I think his career is over. He made a lot of money. He shouldn't complain. He should walk away and be done. And that's it. Maybe his brother just signed a max extension with, what was it, the Hornets? Or
the Hornets, yeah. He just signed like that super max, like 5 years, $200 million, which is absolutely crazy.
It's absurd.
When he had an all-star season 2 years ago and then was barely able to play this past season with injuries. And obviously his brother's got all these injury issues where his career is probably over.
And second reconstructive leg surgery too.
Yeah. They like his leg. I mean, doctors are saying that like it's the worst that they've like ever seen. It seems like doctors can't even figure out what's completely wrong with him, which is sad to see. Obviously you never want to see a player end his career like that, but the big contract that the Bulls gave him will help him sleep at night, I think, a little bit. But it is interesting too what the Bulls have kind of put together this offseason.
Is it ironic also that when you look at the Ball brothers, like how LeVar came into, I jokingly say this, that LeVar came into the NBA with his 3 sons and said, they're going to be the best. They're going to be the next Michael Jordan. Well, Lonzo is done. LiAngelo is kind of a question mark. And they all stink. Like, so what is LeVar? LeVar can't sell shoes. His company went under, essentially. And now we have a situation. Lonzo had it great when he was with the Lakers. That was his situation, to be with LeBron. That could have been the brand builder. And now it's over. So, but long story short, just to circle around to what you were talking about with the guards, you got to go with the 2 guys you paid. That's it. That's the plain and simple of it. Because you have a cap issue now in the NBA where they're making it impossible to have 3 mid to high level exception guys.
Exactly. You have no room to spend anywhere else. And they're purposely trying to do that to try to get rid of these super teams and make these guys, kind of like more competitive and less like, so all these guys can't just team up on one team and all that. And I totally get that. I totally get that, but it makes everything else more difficult, and it's a lot of money that they're dishing out. I mean, Kobe White too. I mean, I would assume Kobe White becomes their starting point guard this year. He was their starter, and when they signed Lonzo, he kind of came off the bench. This past year, Patrick Beverly, when they acquired him, he ended up getting some more minutes than Kobe White ended up getting the second half of the season. But I thought it was very interesting though, and they re-signed Vucevic too. You know, their three big main free agents were Vucevic, White, and Dosunmu.
They overpaid Vucevic also.
They did. It gave him $20 million a year again. And like, yeah, it's absolutely crazy. It's absolutely crazy.
I mean, it's unreal. I mean, him making $20 million a year. Are you kidding me? Like, I don't get that at all. I mean, the guy is a good shooter. Don't get me wrong. Like, he's a typical mid-range. He'll score 15 points a game. He'll grab your rebounds. I mean, it's great.
Yeah. No, exactly. Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that Kobe White definitely would jump right back into the starting rotation, to be honest. Dosunmu definitely could. I mean, he puts up good numbers, but as you were saying, Kobe White is a great player, and very, very much so makes sense for him to come back. And like you were saying before too, Vucevic a little bit overpaid. The main thing that was interesting that I thought was Vucevic, White, and Dosunmu all were big free agents, and people were thinking like they'll bring one of those three guys back. And Bulls GM came out and was like, ideally we would bring all three back. No one thought that they would actually do that, and that's exactly what they did. So they called it the Javon Carter signing, though, was a little interesting. Kind of makes him the outcast in this situation.
Yeah, that was kind of confusing to me. I actually wanted them to bring Beverly back. To the contrary, where everyone says Beverly is a giant headache and like he can be a real pain in the you-know-what at times. Like, I actually think he's a decent leader and a veteran on a team. Now, people are going to be a pain because he's got a podcast on Barstool, and like he's going to be a personality. That's who he is. And that's what a lot of people are now. That's not just athletes. That's influencers and personalities on the internet. Like it comes as part of the package. Like, if you want the personality and the following and the money and the accolades, you kind of have to just take the good with the bad. So I like Patrick Beverly. I don't know why they let him go.
I completely agree with you. Patrick Beverly is like one of my favorite players in the NBA. I love he has a great game. He's got great tenacity, and I like that he's got that chip on his shoulder. You look at the way he was. I believe he was undrafted. He came out of Arkansas and wasn't a big name player, had no jump shot, kind of stuck around on training camp rosters and made a name for himself. And it's bounced around and played for some pretty good teams. And I was hoping they were going to bring him back too, because he's from Chicago. That was like his hometown team. That's the reason why he wanted to go to them at the deadline. But the Sixers ended up grabbing him, which I think was a pretty decent get. But I mean, we'll find out what happens with James Harden. So we don't even know how the Sixers are going to be this year.
I think actually, well, first of all, in my opinion, James Harden is not a leader. Will never be a leader. No. My co-host Tom Albano said on our show that he is always going to be a follower, not a leader. And this is more of a hot take from me. I consider him a B-level player, not an A-level player. And because people are going to say, well, why, Nick? Why do you call him a B-level? I said, because he can score, but he can't play D. He can't lead a team. He's not going to go out there and go rah-rah with the team. It's not who he is. Like, he makes a lot of money. And the weird thing is, he complains that he doesn't get the situation that he wants.
Yeah.
But Daryl Morey, the guy that he was with in Houston, in Philadelphia, and now they clash. Now I want to go to LA. He's going to go destroy the Clippers next.
Yeah, exactly. It would be a mistake for them to get him. It's one of those interesting things that, like, I completely agree with you too on the B-level player. He's one of those rare guys who is a future first ballot Hall of Famer, one of the best players of all time. But realistically, he's a 2 or 3 on a championship team, and that just comes down because of leadership. And it comes down because of his defense and all that kind of stuff. If you look at any guy who's probably in like the top 50 NBA players of all time, would be number 1 for a championship team, you would think. He's the one exception that you can't see him as he's the two. He can be a 2 or 3 for a championship team. He has to, that's why Brooklyn was a pretty decent situation for him. If him, Kyrie, and KD were able to, kind of screw their heads on straight and stay together, they could have done something.
Keywords, getting your head screwed on straight. I mean,
exactly.
I'm sure you saw the other headline as well, and I know we forgot to talk about this, but Joel Embiid made headlines too, believe it or not, with Philadelphia, because he basically came out and said, I want to win a title with Philadelphia or elsewhere. Now, he came out afterwards and basically said, I didn't mean it. I didn't mean what I said. No, you did mean it. Let's be real. You got to believe that he meant it too.
Oh, absolutely. He definitely meant that. And he's doing that. Embiid's another guy too that isn't afraid to say what's on his mind, which I respect. And he has been trying to make it work with Philly, and no matter what they do, they just can't seem to put it together. And he's a fantastic player. And if you're a 76ers fan right now, you cannot be feeling very happy with this offseason. Harden's demanding a trade. You got Embiid saying, I want to win a championship no matter what team it's on. Like, he doesn't even care if it's as a 76er, which is the last thing you want to hear as a fan of the organization.
I'll give you a hot take I made on Empty the Bench this past week. I said that I think that Embiid could end up following Dame to Miami.
Yeah.
I know it's a stretch because of the cap, but I could see Joel basically saying, hey, trust the process, more like false the process now, basically. How long have we been at this for? 7 years, 7 years? I mean, and we were supposed to win a title. Your biggest mistake was letting Jimmy Butler go. Absolutely. In my opinion.
Giving Tobias Harris the money that you could have gave Jimmy Butler. That was their biggest mistake.
What has Tobias Harris been? Zero.
Exactly. Tobias Harris is a good player, but we're talking about a difference with Jimmy Butler, who's a tremendous player.
Good, not great.
Good, not great. Exactly. He's a good offensive player, plays a little bit of defense, but he's like an 18 to 20 point per game kind of guy that you're not going to win a championship with him as your number 3. He's the kind of guy that's got to be a supporting piece for a championship team.
I also question Josh Harris, and the reason I bring that name up is because of what just happened on the NFL side, that they just got the Commanders. Is his attention going to be on the Sixers as much anymore?
Exactly. That's the big question, and I'm not too sure it's going to be. Owning all those different franchises too, it's going to be a lot of work. And all in different cities too, all over the place,
and 3 sports. But I don't know. I don't trust the process anymore in Philadelphia. I think that's over. I think Embiid is going to demand a trade next, with Harden being out. Now, those two didn't get along to begin with, in my opinion. It didn't really work. You would have thought with a dominant guard, if that's what you want to call Harden, because he's kind of in between positions. But that would have been great, because Harden, believe it or not, when he's not a scorer, he's a good passer. He puts up the assist numbers. You would have thought that was great with Embiid down in the post, but it's not working.
And it should 100% work. That's exactly, it's so true. He doesn't come up in the big moments, though. That's the problem. That's the biggest issue that's always been with James Harden, is coming up in the biggest moments. And we saw that again in the playoffs this year. He had a good game and then he disappeared for 2 games. The inconsistency just is always there.
People didn't learn originally when KD played with Harden in OKC that it was a great tandem with Westbrook, great young trio before big threes were really a thing.
Yeah.
It didn't work because those guys all had egos, and that's why it didn't work. And it didn't work in Brooklyn. Egos. Now we're seeing it again. Egos.
Exactly. These guys don't come out of nowhere and start having a problem with everything without that kind of being their mindset throughout, towards everything. That's just the way that they are as players, and it's difficult to see. But jumping back, Sixers going to have a difficult time, but the Bulls, be interesting to see what they're able to put together with re-signing some of their guys. So jumping over to some other news that kind of came out this week, the NBA's Board of Governors approved the sale of the Charlotte Hornets. Michael Jordan and his ownership team have decided to let go of the Hornets. They're pulling out of all of the operations, and it was just approved 29-1 that the Hornets can be sold, and to try to guess the genius owner that voted against it. None other than James Dolan.
Why am I not surprised by that? To be quite honest, like
it's unbelievable. I don't know what in the world like he would be like with the reason for him to vote against it just for the sake of being the only one to vote against it. But
unless he wants Michael Jordan still to be a majority owner because of the brand's sake, but
I guess so to help the Hornets. But I mean, Jordan doesn't want anything to do with it anymore. And the ownership team too for the Hornets is very interesting. Jay Colt's a part of it too, and he's a North Carolina guy too. So he's got it's one of those like big plethora of guys that throw in their chip of money, like when the Mets were up for sale and Travis Kelce and Bradley Beal like tried to put together a team to buy the Mets with A-Rod.
That was bizarre. I mean, that was like when Mark Cuban tried to do it. I mean,
exactly.
First of all, I think Mark Cuban would have made MLB a better place, but that's a different discussion for another day.
Oh
but,
They refused to let him. He would have had an MLB team if it was up to him.
He would have had the Cubs or the Mets.
Yeah, he would easily would have bought them. He's also tried to buy a second NBA team too, and that's like
that'll never be allowed. That's a conflict of interest in a lot of ways. They won't allow it. But looking at this ownership, Michael Jordan, and this might be another hot take. He's, in my opinion, was one of the worst owners in NBA history.
I agree with that, and it's like it was a pastime for him. You know, he just wanted to still be involved in the NBA. He didn't want the hustle and bustle of being a coach or something like that. I mean, he made so much money throughout his career. Like, why even go through that, go on the road all the time? So one of the easier things is he's worth over $1 billion because of his Jordan brand and everything, more than $1 billion. So why not buy a team and just see it? And you know, he kind of he played around as like the cool uncle for like the guys who played for the Hornets. He would show up to their practice. He'd jokingly play one-on-one against them.
LeVar wanted him.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, like I still don't forget that time that they missed that game-winning shot, and then Jordan's like kind of standing there like laughing with the team, and he kind of like shoves Malik Monk like as a joke. He's like it was his pastime to own an NBA team.
It was an investment.
Exactly. It was he doesn't have much going on right now besides smoking cigars and playing golf. So
I guarantee you though, because I think he bought it for, if I'm not mistaken, close to $700 million. I think is where he kind of bought it. And the valuation was $3 billion. So whatever he owned, I think he owned the team 100%. He still has a minority stake in the team. I think he sold like 70-75%. I think so. So he's gonna make like $1.5 billion or more.
Oh, no. It ended up being an amazing investment for him because he's making a ton of money on this sale. Like for the amount that he bought it for, I think you're exactly right, $700 million, and he's selling them for like $3 billion or something like that. Like crazy.
And he's still holding on to a piece.
Yeah, exactly. And he's not even selling the full stake. He's going to hold on to like a little bit of it. And at this point, you know, he can do whatever he wants. So he's just playing around.
It's not like he needed the money.
Exactly. That's the last thing that he needed. But it's very interesting though that it wasn't 30-0. I don't really know what James Dolan's gripe is with the team that's trying to buy the Hornets. I think he's just kind of like trying to be like the opposite guy, and you know,
he's got to be the bad guy, owner. I mean, by the way, I was reading. So it says Jordan paid $275 million for a majority stake in 2010. So think about that right there. $275 million in 2010. We're 2023, so we're 13 years later, and he's going to walk away with approximately 75% of $3 billion. So unbelievable.
Yeah, absolutely crazy. But that's always been Jordan, though. It's like whatever he touches kind of turns to gold. His return on investment is crazy. I mean, I don't know if you watched that new Air movie that came out. Fantastic movie for anyone who hasn't seen it. basically about how Nike landed Michael Jordan and about the development of his first shoe and how they were able to pitch and get him away from Adidas, who was like the big money maker at the time.
Which is nuts, by the way, also.
Absolutely crazy how that short of a time ago, like Nike was a nothing company. It was a running shoe company. Had no NBA presence, had no basketball presence.
They basically had to force Nike to get behind Jordan and basically say, hey, trust us, Jordan's going to become the brand. And heck, can you imagine if Jordan was not a Nike brand today and it was still Adidas?
I'm telling you, Jordan made Nike too. And think about if Jordan didn't turn into the player that he became, and he became an average NBA player, Nike wouldn't be the thing that it is today.
Actually, if that were the case, I don't think LeBron would be what he is today either.
But he probably wouldn't. There would be a huge domino effect that would affect a lot of different stuff.
Because remember, they're both Nike guys. So like, imagine if Jordan doesn't hit that massive brand and then they have competing brands for the shoes. Like
Adidas would probably still be running things. And
oh my God, that'd be nuts
if it wasn't for that, which is like crazy to think about. But the main point that I was getting at with that was that when Nike agreed to a deal with him, there was a stake in it that Jordan makes a certain amount of money with every shoe that's sold, which was something that no company ever gave to a player.
A royalty deal, essentially.
A royalty deal, exactly. And Nike gave in, and I mean, look on the street, everybody's got Jordans on their feet nowadays, and think about it, every pair that gets sold, and a certain amount of that goes right into Michael Jordan's pocket. I mean, that's why the dude's worth over $1 billion, because
I mean, Nike's not complaining, I'll tell you that.
Exactly, because they're coming away with billions as well.
That's like a free cash machine, the Jordan brand to Nike.
Unbelievable, absolutely crazy. But so the Hornets will be getting sold to a new ownership team. J. Cole is part of that team. I honestly haven't looked too deep into that. I don't know who the big guys behind that team is. But Michael Jordan is taking less of a stake. He was obviously the majority owner before, and is now going to still have a percentage, but not very much.
It's a private equity firm, which is pretty common now in ownership groups. You're getting these guys who are either owning or co-owning. They're either a private equity firm or they're in technology. That's another big one where they're coming out of there. Look at Mark Cuban when he took over. He basically created radio.com and took over the streaming side of the NBA, like that, and look where he is now with the Mavs. I mean,
exactly. Like in Paul Allen too, when he bought the Trailblazers, he was
Microsoft.
He was the big Microsoft guy with Bill Gates. It's always those guys that.
And now look at the Clippers, same thing.
Yep. Ballmer. And Ballmer's one of the most richest guys in the world too. I think he's top 10.
He'd be a real asshole at times, but
I honestly like Steve Ballmer because
but I can appreciate sitting in the front row.
Oh yeah,
really going rah with your team.
He legitimately loves the Clippers and wants that's what you want to see from an ownership too. Like there's a lot of owners out there that don't care at all about their team. They just want to make money off their team. But you could tell that Steve Ballmer, I mean, that press conference with Kawhi and Paul George when they first got signed, that was hilarious. Like he was like a real fan at that. Like he was so excited that they landed the two of them.
People were so concerned when he came because they're like, oh, it's another tech guy. He's just doing it as an investment. Like,
exactly.
I mean, it's funny. Like guys like him who are excited. You look at James Dolan in New York, and I hate saying this because I go after most of the guys that are on our sports shows on this network are Knicks fans, and I feel bad for them. But it's just like, oh, you got stuck with James Dolan. What do I do now? And he's never going to sell. He's one of those guys.
Exactly. He's never going to sell, and he doesn't really care about the Knicks or the Rangers. He just wants to make money and play in his band. That's all he cares about.
You kind of wish if you could have a do-over, like Mark Cuban could have bought the Knicks.
Oh my God.
And he would have bought everything. He would have found a way to get LeBron here. He would have done. I mean, I don't know if he would have come here. That's a fallacy of predetermined outcome. But I think he would have found a way to do something.
An owner goes a long way with a franchise, especially the players that decide to come to it too. So that would not have shocked me at all. I would have much rather had Mark Cuban, obviously, as the Knicks owner. Dolan is
brutal.
is very brutal to say the least. But sadly, we're not. He's not going anywhere. I got my wish that the Wilpons finally sold the Mets. I don't think I'm ever getting my wish that Dolan's going to sell the Knicks.
No, well, watch, we're going to be gone, and somehow the Dolan family is still going to have it. It's going to get passed down from like kid to kid to kid. Like, oh, he still owns it.
Yep.
It's haunting the Knicks organization forever.
I would not be shocked. I mean, it got passed down to him. It was his dad's pretty much. Like his dad was the founder of Cablevision, and kind of
Right.
like everything got handed down to him. So I wouldn't be surprised if it gets handed down to like his kids too.
Well, we'll see.
But yeah, exactly. We'll see. So Hornets getting sold. Some other interesting news too. Draymond Green's comments on Jordan Poole. Obviously, you know, Draymond Green's got his podcast. He's in the news nonstop because he's always talking. And last year during training camp, there was obviously the fight between Draymond Green and Jordan Poole, where Draymond punched Poole right behind the court. We don't know any details of what was said in that. They're very stingy on laying those out, but Draymond went on his podcast and said, as a quote, "I don't just hit people. Dialogue, of course, happens over time, and you usually ain't just triggered by something like that fast, you know, to that degree. This is a team. You know what I'm saying? Ain't nobody on my team triggering me, you know, in an instant. You know, we know stuff that you don't say amongst men. You know what I'm saying? We know you know things that you have to stand on." So he said this. My apologies. He said this on Patrick Beverley's podcast.
The Pat Bev pod with Ron on Barstool.
Yeah. He said this on Beverley's podcast because they interviewed him. So basically, what he's saying is, you don't just hit a teammate like that. Like something has to be said for it to kind of go overboard for something like that to happen. So he's teasing a lot of different things. And then Jordan Poole responded with a very passive aggressive, you know, kind of post. He responded with an Instagram story and just said talk off the topic with a bunch of periods.
I saw that.
and then he posted another one that said, "Find you a hobby." Basically like saying, you know, Draymond's got to go kind of find himself a hobby. And then his dad stepped in too. Jordan Poole's dad, Anthony Poole.
What a jerk.
Yep. He stepped in on Twitter and he kind of, you know, called out Draymond. And to my knowledge, I don't think Draymond's responded to.
Oh, it did.
Oh, he did. What was that?
At least from what I'm trying to find the quotes because I saw them because they did it. It was all over ESPN. It was everywhere because basically his father basically threatened to meet him in a parking lot somewhere. Yeah. And I was like, what the heck is going on here? Like, I said, wait a minute. First of all, it's a bad look for Jordan Poole that your father is going to battle for you against a guy who is a mouthpiece. And I mean that quite literally. Draymond Green is a mouthpiece because he knows that his career is on the back nine. And somehow the Warriors decided to give him $100 million. That's neither here nor there. But Draymond went a little overboard. And by the way, Draymond reminds me of one of those people where he says, like, you know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Like, he thinks that we know what he's saying all the time, and we don't.
Instead of actually explaining what he's saying, he says, you know what I'm saying? Kind of just to be like, you guys know what I'm talking about. Like, I don't have to, like,
we can read your mind.
Exactly. I don't have to reiterate what I'm saying when all of us just like, yeah, it would be nice if you reiterated it because we really don't know what you're saying.
And by the way, also Draymond Green got what's that? Catfished on Twitter. Did you see that?
Yeah. He did. I saw that.
On the whole Kevin Garnett called him out, which this whole thing with Twitter, because now you can buy verification and people get confused and there's
more and more catfishes to happen like crazy.
So he thought that he was dealing with the real NBA Central account when he obviously doesn't know how to spell. So he got caught off by a Garnett quote, and that was it.
NBA Centel. I'm not gonna lie, when that account first started, it caught me a couple of times. It popped up on my timeline, and I was just like, "Wait, what?" And then I looked at the handle where it says at NBA Centel. I'm like, okay, there you go. It's difficult because just like you said, like the verifications aren't there anymore on Twitter, but it's hilarious when you get like an actual player or, you know, Skip Bayless, like when he fell for the James Harden stuff.
That was great.
That was unbelievable.
But like some of the quotes, you and I have talked about the real account, the real NBA Central account, where I've asked you before, like some of the sources, like even though they're using big names, it looks off.
It does. It does. And everything I follow them, and like they are a very solid account. But everything, like I don't necessarily believe everything they post because they've said a few things that are kind of just like outlandish and
And
end
they
up
get
not
called
being
out by some
true.
of those sources.
Yeah. Yep, exactly. And then they'll tag a source and the source will respond and be like, I did not say that. Or like read the context of like my article and it'll explain what I actually said. Um and yeah, so it's one of those accounts that it's like they have some scoops that are interesting and they tag a lot of people, but you can't always believe it. Kind of like NBA Legion too.
That's
Yeah, NBA
another
Legion.
one.
NBA
Yeah.
Legion's like NBA Legion's been around forever too. NBA Legion was when I first got Twitter, like back in high school. That's been around. And that was one of the more reliable sources back then because that was before like obviously reporters and stuff had Twitters, but that was before there was a million different NBA fan pages that reported stuff.
Wow. See, that shows the age gap between us because you had Twitter in high school. I didn't. It was
Yeah,
kind of like at the end, like when I first went to college. But
yeah,
like,
yeah.
I don't know. It's just Draymond's got to one cool down. Jordan Poole's father's got to cool down. He was wrong, even though Draymond Green is wrong. And I think the incident you're talking about is the whole thing where Jordan Poole was talking about having a pool and having money, and
Yeah.
Draymond Green got mad and kind of overreacted. And
Yeah.
but
It's yeah,
it's stupid.
exactly. And now that he's on the Wizards, they're against each other, so they can come out and kind of say this. I wouldn't be surprised if the real details about that fight do end up coming out. As long as the two of them were teammates, you would have never heard those details come out. Nobody would like ever leak anything, but I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, Draymond's already like hinting at it. Um and it will be
He's an
interesting.
instigator.
But it's also one of those things like it's a he said she said. Like Draymond's going to say his side of it, and then Jordan Poole's going to respond back and be like, "Oh, I never did that," blah blah blah. And really, the only source that you can believe is somebody who like witnessed it and is a neutral party. And I don't think that there's going to be any of those.
He's an antagonist. Draymond Green. I'm getting tired of it. Like the only reason he gets away with it is because he won 4 titles with the Warriors. And like if let's say like he got drafted by the Pistons and he pulled all this BS, like one, he wouldn't be with the team anymore.
He'd probably be out of the NBA if he got drafted by the Pistons.
But no, you're the big bad dynasty Warriors. You won a title, by the way, because of Steph Curry, not because of you.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
Don't get me wrong, he played great defense and he made some great stops. But like
he's a very good player for sure.
I'm just tired of the headache. Like the podcast is enough. Like I'm the #1 podcast. It's my show. I can say what I want. No one cares.
Yeah. I know it's like the new media that he tries to get off to all of us. Like the NBA players now are having all these different podcasts, and like they're more religious. Like they're more religious, and their word is sacred, basically. Compared to like guys who report stuff, and it's just not true.
They would rather, and the excuse I heard, and with the whole new media thing, I want to be the one that gives my news first. I don't want the big outlets. I don't want ESPN to have it. I don't want any other NBA TV. I'm going to break it on my own platform, and you can't tell me what to do. JJ Redick was another one. Pat Beverly's another one. Yep. I mean, Paul George, who of all people is probably the biggest hypocrite in the NBA, has his own podcast. And I think he called it, what was that term that he was called? He called this podcast that it was Plan P or something, whatever he called it.
Playoff P.
Playoff P, because people were criticizing him because he could never do it in the NBA playoffs.
Exactly. Every time when he was on the Pacers, he always ended up choking. I know the whole new media thing and stuff. It's like it's kind of a joke because none of these guys are ever going to be able to realistically break their own news because there's too many sources within organizations, and a player is not going to be allowed to announce anything until the ink is dry. And a lot of times the guys who have the inside scoops can report it before it's even like official.
Well, so you have the Wojs and the Shams of the world that leak everything. And I mean, the next story, which we'll probably get to in a little bit, I believe that Woj and Shams are controlling that narrative. But my point is the whole new media thing is insane. It's not just NBA athletes. Now you're seeing MLB guys, NFL guys, especially NFL guys, like you mentioned before, the Kelsey brothers with their
Yep.
podcast. I forgot which Kelsey brothers said it, but he said, I wouldn't have done a podcast unless it was with my brother.
Yep,
So
exactly. Yeah.
they want their own news. They want their own outlet. They're tired of the Adam Schefters in the NFL or the Wojs in the NBA. So
Yeah.
that's essentially what it is.
Yeah, exactly. But as long as there is NBA is televised and this goes through different sports media companies and stuff like that, there's never going to be only the new media.
I mean, look at Amazon. Amazon is now getting in the game. I mean, now they have their own sports programming cycle with all these people. I mean, heck, didn't LeBron have his barbershop thing end up on Amazon? I mean,
it was on HBO to start, and I think it got moved to Amazon or something.
Well, I think they gave him a live stream because heck, we don't have enough of those already. Or what do they call them? Not live streams, watch alongs, whatever they call it at this point. Like, there's too many of them.
There's way too many of them. I mean, an NBA player can go on Instagram Live at any time, and you can like what Damian Lillard's been doing. And speaking of that, that's jumps into our final segment perfectly. The Damian Lillard trade buzz. Obviously, a couple weeks ago in the last episode, I laid out a possible trade scenario that would be a 3-team trade between the Heat, the Nets, and the Trailblazers for Damian Lillard to go to Miami. Tyler Hero would be part of it as well. And there has not been much movement in the past couple of weeks. There's a lot of different reports that come out every day saying, oh, this is going to happen. This is going to happen. Tyler Hero has to be involved. The newest report was Tyler Hero is reportedly involved in the most recent proposal, and the Heat will have to offer at least 4 first-round picks and at least 3 players. That's what the Trailblazers are demanding of them,
which is insane.
Which is crazy.
But I think it actually makes sense if you think about it.
It does.
But the one guy that we need to talk about is Joe Cronin, the GM of the Trailblazers, because this guy can't keep his mouth shut, number one. And 2, he basically said, this can take months. I don't care.
Yep.
You're gonna screw your team.
Yeah. And he's not going to give in until he gets the perfect trade that he thinks is fantastic, which is going to be so bad if it spills into the season. You got Lillard sitting out.
I mean, go ask AI how that worked out.
Exactly, and that's the crazy thing about it too, is that the Trailblazers do not seem like that they're willing to give in at all. Miami can only offer so much too. And as I kind of went into detail in the last episode, they would have to, in order to kind of spread out their first round picks, it'll be pretty difficult to offer 4 first round picks to one team. They'd have to kind of spread them out.
You're talking about pick swaps, but yeah,
with different pick swaps, that would be the only way I think that it would be possible. There would be a few different pick swaps, and also they'd have to include the Miami is insistent that they don't want to move Tyler Hero. There's no trade that can go down where they don't include Butler, Adebayo, or Tyler Hero. And the only realistic one that they would trade out of those 3 is Tyler Hero.
Big time.
They're not going to trade Jimmy Butler. They're not going to trade Bam Adebayo. They want to create a big 3 with those 2 guys and Damian Lillard. So Tyler Hero, pretty much, if there is going to be a Damian Lillard trade, Tyler Hero is getting traded. If they
have no choice, the money too.
Exactly, he's getting, because of the money. It's the only thing that would make any sense. They can have throw-ins to make the money work too, with Duncan Robinson, because he's getting paid pretty decently. But they can throw in a few different guys, but they can't. They're not going to be able to center a trade around Duncan Robinson to get this trade done. It has to be around Tyler Hero.
I was surprised when they let go of Gabe Vincent to the Lakers. That was a small money guy. If you were going to keep somebody, that was the one to keep, even though he got pay raised and obviously he was going to get paid. But that's the guy you should have kept.
He absolutely should have got kept. And he also could have been a good, at the very least, he could have been decent trade bait. If a Damian Lillard trade were to spill into the season. I know if you sign a free agent deal, I'm not sure if it's an entire year, but I think it's there's a certain amount of time that you're not allowed to be traded if you just
Uh,
signed with somebody.
July 31st. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I know that that's the same thing for rookies too. It was July 31st.
I mean, if you're
But
going to trade someone, I think that's ridiculous. Just if you're going to
yeah,
trade someone, you're going to trade someone. It shouldn't matter.
exactly. It shouldn't matter. And I mean, if July 31st is the deadline, it's a week. That's a week away anyway. So,
But this whole thing is insane. Just like the logistics of this whole thing, where
yeah,
Damian Lillard has basically said, "I'm going nowhere," and you addressed this, I think, last time you were on with the agent. First of all, I'm
yeah,
done with his agent. I'm getting so tired of the BS that he's causing, and I think, and they're never going to put it in the CBA,
yeah,
but the NBA needs to put a rule in the CBA that the agents can't just go and commit career suicide for some of these organizations and say,
exactly,
well, he's not going to go here. He's not going to go. The agent should not be allowed to do that
exactly.
unless you're a free agent.
Yeah, it kills the leverage, and it makes no sense that for him to come out and say he's only going here because if it makes even if he only wants to go to one place, you want other teams to be in the bidding too to kind of hike up the price.
That's what the Trailblazers were supposedly doing with Woj, because there was a
Yeah,
report out there that they were kind of like floating information to Woj to make it look a little more
yeah,
appetizing.
exactly, and it also makes the Heat be able to pay a little bit less too because or have to pay more, I should say, because they're the only team that Lillard can get traded to, and Trailblazers know that, so they can demand a higher price.
Well, I would say there's a give and a take to that, because one, you're right that it should be demanding more, but actually, I think
It,
it's actually going to cause the price
yeah,
to go down, because basically there's one team and no
yeah,
one else is going to put offers out there. So it actually makes it worse for
yeah,
the Trailblazers. Now, don't get me wrong. I like Tyler Hero. Is
yeah,
he a Dame Lillard? No,
no,
not by any stretch of the imagination. But if I'm Cronin, I actually would put my foot down in the
yeah,
sand. And even though that's going to look horrible for the Trailblazers. And I think I said this to you when we talked about Durant, that put your foot down. What do you have to lose? Let him sit out. You don't have to pay him then if he sits out.
exactly, and that's honestly, to be honest with you, it very well might come down to that. I don't see a trade happening anytime soon. I feel like there's going to have to be a lot of give and take between the two teams, and it could leak into the season. I would not be surprised
I think it will.
if it would do that. I would guess that it probably would. Like I feel like we're not going to get a Woj alert anytime soon that Damian Lillard's headed to the Heat. I just don't see it happening.
Portland has to get this right because of the
Yeah,
value sake. They can't just give up Damian Lillard and say, all right, I'll take Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson, and I don't know, maybe 3 first-round picks. That's not
yeah,
enough.
nope.
And people are going to
And
say, Nick, Paul, you're crazy. We're not going to take that. It's not enough.
no, it's not enough. It's not enough at all. And also, you're getting all those first round picks. If the Heat are dominant the next several years, those picks are going to be in the 20s. Like they're not even going to be good picks anyway.
And
So,
also with Durant, when we saw that massive deal go down,
yep,
now that was a little different because that was in season and Durant was basically saying, I'm out of here.
yeah,
And believe it or not, the Nets won the trade right away because Durant unfortunately got hurt and
yeah.
basically missed the rest of the regular season. So they got all those picks and all those young players. They're going to make out in the long run from
Oh,
that deal.
absolutely, absolutely. The Suns gave up a lot for Durant,
And now they're what, 80 million over the cap with all the
yeah,
deals they made. So like
exactly.
in the long run, the Suns are going to be fine, but in the long run, they better win.
Yeah, they have a small window that they have to win in, or they're in big trouble. That's the problem.
The Trailblazers are essentially in rebuild mode. Let's put it
Yeah,
that way. They got
absolutely.
Scoot Henderson, but like,
Yeah, and they have some talent. Like Shaden Sharp, could end up being a good player. Exactly like you were saying before too, they have to get this Damian Lillard trade right because this is a generational player, and you can get a lot for him. And if they end up settling for very little, that makes the entire Lillard era in Portland even that much worse.
also the cap number. They have to settle that and absorb that too. So they got to get that right too. It's 60 million a year.
Yeah, exactly, which is absolutely crazy. So it will be interesting to see if any of this stuff ends up going down, but I'm not too sold on it. But
I'm not either.
That'll do it for another episode of the 3&D. I want to thank everyone for tuning into the Empty the Bench podcast network for another episode. Once again, make sure you like and subscribe to this channel and follow the social at the 3&D ETB. We'll be putting out content all week in case you missed the entire episode. Hope everyone has a great night. Nick, thanks a ton for joining me. Any last words before we head out?
I'm just looking forward to the NBA offseason. I hope the Dame thing gets figured out, but like you and I said, I don't see it happening anytime soon.
Absolutely. So that's another episode. We'll see you guys next week. And remember to follow us, Empty the Bench, on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and follow at the 3&D as always. So thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll be back next week for some more NBA craziness. See you guys.